So the overall goal of our project is to utilize meta-analytic techniques, so statistical techniques, as well as literature reviews to combine multiple data sets in an effort to provide a more complete and robust understanding of the salt marsh impacts and recovery following the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And so our primary focus is on wetland vegetation, macroinfauna, soil macroinvertebrates like snails and fiddler crabs, as well as soil oiling characteristics and shoreline erosion. So we are just now completing a meta-analysis on salt marsh vegetation, which includes 10 individual data sets from GoMRI and NRDA, and spans a time frame from 2010 to 2017. And so this meta-analysis is focusing on salt marsh vegetation, and our metrics of interest are vegetation cover, stem density, above and below ground biomass, as well as vegetation height by species. So we're looking at both the two dominant species in Louisiana and Gulf Coast marshes in general, which are Spartina alterniflora and Juncus romarianus. And so what we're finding are, across all metrics, we're finding a consistency of oiling impacts. But in some cases, we're seeing quite substantial recovery. So for Spartina, which is one of the dominant species in Gulf Coast marshes, we're seeing that in some cases recovery occurred in a few years, 3 to 4 years, except for in some of the heavily oiled marshes, we're seeing that recovery may be falling short of reference conditions. So the ultimate end would be a system that has not quite recovered to reference conditions. Okay. And then for Juncus romarianus, the other dominant plant species, that one had much more significant and substantial impacts, and to date there has been very little recovery for that species. And then finally, probably the most important aspect of the vegetation component is recovery of the below ground growth system, which we don't have quite the length of data set for that. It only expands through 2014, but through that time we're seeing almost a complete lack of recovery. So again, the below ground system is what supports the above ground system, so that's one of the most important aspects of recovery that we want to see happen. So our findings are showing, really showing a consistency across multiple data sets. And so when we're combining these data sets and doing a meta-analysis, which incorporates results from multiple, statistically incorporates results from multiple data sets, we're seeing a consistency in our findings across these different studies, as well as a consistency across different geographies. So not only Louisiana salt marshes, but also in Alabama and Mississippi. And so, you know, these findings are broadening our understanding of the oil spill impacts as well as recovery, and I think can be important in informing the initial response efforts as well as the decision making for restoration and recovery trajectories that come afterwards. So, you know, our research definitely has important implication for future oil spill response and restoration efforts because what we're doing is providing a comprehensive assessment that synthesizes data across these multiple studies, so we get this more clear understanding of the impacts and recovery. So, for example, you know, some of our findings are showing that you know, an initial vegetation planting may be important, may accelerate the recovery rate, and then in addition to that, having an initial fertilizer application may accelerate that even further by stimulating the functional processes by accelerating plant establishment and below ground growth, and then which supports ecosystem stability or helps ecosystem, accelerates the return of ecosystem stability, I should say.